this Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future. I've got none other than the great guest, Jeffrey Weissman, who played George McFly in Back to the Future Parts 2 and 3. He also had amazing roles in various films, television series. He's now doing theaters. I'll tell you, this was one of my favorite interviews. It was great to take a trip back in time to see all these great pictures and little snippets of Back to the Future 2 and 3, seeing him in the makeup. It was a really great experience talking to him. He's very humble, funny as hell, and just a really cool guy. So without further ado, let's get ready to interview Mr. Jeffrey Weissman here, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
Our world is changing faster and faster. Humans are constantly on the go. Over 70% of people are not happy in some way. They're living in the shadows of fear, especially in their careers and life. Are we humans doomed? I don't think so. And that's where I come in. My name is Joseph Stanley Rychalsy, otherwise known as JoeWoo. Each week, I seek to uncover what it takes to truly live your life to the fullest by finding out through interviewing people what were their failures and what did it take for them to reach success. Their stories are truly inspiring, and perhaps they'll inspire you to let go of your fear and live your career and life to the fullest.
All right, everybody, thank you for joining this special episode of the Career Life Show. I've got the wonderful actor, Mr. Jeffrey Weissman, here with me today. Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time to pop on here and chat and go down memory lane a little bit. So how you doing?
Good.
Awesome.
Good to be here, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's been an interesting year. It's been an interesting couple of weeks as well. Just been very, very busy and getting this fired up, which is awesome. And I just love the passion you have when you act. And I was reading somewhere that where you got your start in acting, an actor became ill in school, I think it was, and you're basically invited to try out, and you got the part. And I guess the rest is history, as we say. Is that how it happened?
Gosh, I'm trying to remember the specifics of that story. I think I started acting since I was a little kid, and
Right.
always wanted to be an actor. And there was a little brief time that I thought about being an astronaut or a fireman.
Nice.
But the influence of seeing my father had clubs that he managed or owned, where a lot of actors would play cards or backgammon at his clubs.
Sure.
And he was even partners at one time with Lauren Green. And I would often go to the club, meet like Omar Sharif, and then go see him on the big screen.
Wow.
And I was fascinated by that and loved it, and also loved, the escape and what I experienced as a kid, seeing Don Knotts or
Right.
And just I remember very early seeing The Seven Faces of Dr. Lau, and
Wow.
Tony Randall's work in that was just amazing, playing all these multiple characters. I was like, God, I would love to do that. So I think I had that influence going on early. And in junior high, well, through grade school, I was doing things like, role playing. I'd go over to my friend's house and we'd play Gilligan's Island and play different characters, and then find whatever chemical his parents let him have that we were allowed to blow up the island, make it like volcano blow, fun stuff. And so a lot of role playing with my sister too. We would save our allowance and buy records, and Alice Cooper Killer or Black Sabbath or Led Zeppelin, whatever, Moody Blues, we would act out those records.
Right.
And so I knew that it was something I was loving and drawn towards. And in, I guess it was junior high, I started incorporating it into my studies. I talked my history teacher in allowing me to do a live broadcast from ancient Egypt. For my report, essay that was due. I was like, okay, I could write this out, but I'd rather act it out.
Right.
And I was not the not a lot of the students liked my hamminess and being center of attention and class clown. I got myself into a lot of trouble doing that, but nonetheless, I did it and loved it, and sometimes got a grade. And finally in junior high, got taken onto the boards in a variety of different ways, talent shows, and then plays, and then carried that through into a high school community theater, and then helping out. I did children's theater with people you may know, like Lee Ehrenberg from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Yep.
And
awesome.
That took me, in fact, the director of one of those kids shows that I did, the Me Nobody Knows, brought me to UCLA, where I did 1,000 Clowns, and wow. Then in community theater, worked with like the likes of Diana Canova, Didi Canova, and Joyce DeWitt at UCLA, and a lot of these people who were soon to become big stars, or because of their parent, like in Diane Didi Canova's case, her mother was Judy Canova, was a big star and comedian back in the day. And I had friends who were working.
Right.
Garrettson was on My World and Welcome to It, and Anissa Jones was on Family Affair, and I had these actor friends, and I said, they're doing it, I want to do it, and my parents wouldn't let me. They said, no, your studies come first. No. Right. And they saw also at the clubs actors who were gambling and swearing and drinking heavily, right. and then I remember one day my dad came home and said, Jeffrey, you know who Maxwell Smart is? Get smart. And I go, yeah. He says, well, he was playing at the club. And I said, Don, my kid wants to be an actor. What advice do you have for him? And he said, Wally, tell him to forget about it. It's maybe 10% talent and 90% pure luck.
Wow.
But I was always drawn to it. My mom, she was a bail bonds woman for a while, and she bailed Lenny Bruce out of jail and other talents.
Oh my gosh.
So they wouldn't let me do it. But I would find myself drawn to, growing up in LA, to location shoots. I would sometimes find the FBI shooting in my neighborhood. And I met Monty Markham from the Second 100 Years. And he was guest starring. And I remember this one character actor, I had just graduated from 4th grade, I think. Or wow. It was report card day, whatever. Right. He said, kid, what's that? Your report card? Let me see that. I said, he says, oh, hey, you got a B in English, you got an A in history. What's this D in math? Wow. What's that all about? How are you going to know you want to be an actor? I said, yes. And how are you going to know if your agent's cheating you or not? You got to do better in math. Wow. I remember I heard Mel Brooks was shooting his next project in my neighborhood when I was in high school in '74. Right. And I walked home through the Santa Monica Promenade, where I'd heard the shooting might be going on. Right. And after a while, I started seeing actors and actresses in Victorian evening clothes. And I was like, it must be around here somewhere. And there was one gentleman who's, I kind of circled back instead of walking straight through, and, I want to check this out, what's going on. And there was a guy whose mustache was flapping. So, excuse me, sir, your mustache is coming off. Oh, is it? Who are you? And I said, well, I am an actor. Was I 14? I think it was 14. Wow. And he says, oh, yeah, what have you done? And I said, well, Merchant of Venice and Dark of the Moon, and, different shows I'd done in school mostly. And he said, really? You were an actor, a little 14-year-old? You want to meet Mel? I was like, yes. Of course. Come with me. And so he took me to the Great American Music Hall. I'm sorry, not Great American. That's here in San Francisco. Right. The Mayfair Music Hall in Santa Monica, and started introducing me to people. The first person I met was Marty Feldman. Wow. And I was like, oh my God, he's the first grown man who wore a man bag, a purse, which I wear now.
Right.
It was kind of cool, and because he was in street clothes, but then there was Peter Boyle in complete green shades of the monster makeup. I said, "Oh, this is going to look so cool!"
Right.
And Roy Wallach, this gentleman this professional extra who brought me onto the set, the location, found Mel. And he says, "Mel, you want to meet this kid? He's an actor." And Mel was running around. He was like, "They won't take us. I got no time for kids." Went off, and that was my first meeting with Mel. Over the years, I've met him a handful of times, and each time is a different event with Mel.
Sounds like it. It sounds like it. So you were like a kind of a Steven Spielberg who snuck on Universal, so you kind of would hang out at different locations and shooting and stuff. That's pretty cool.
I was always trying to get on lots. Right. I even got my grandfather, I remember, with a bunch of my friends. I said, Al, can you take us over to see De Laurentiis's King Kong that's shooting at MGM? I'm sure we can get in. He says, what? All right. And so we loaded all my friends into his Mustang. We drove, and of course we got turned away at the gate. I was like, I didn't have this figured out. How were we going to get on? I thought just through charisma. Right. Luckily, Roy Wallach, the extra that I met there shooting Young Frankenstein, it's in fact that was where they were shooting the Puttin' on the Ritz number there at the music. Right. He would invite me to come with him to sets because he knew my desire to really get on set. So I went to the set of a medical center with him. Wow. And hung out. I remember hanging out for a while on the giant stairway that had just been used in Funny Lady, and Chad Everett coming by during a break or something and taking a shot off his flask to Shakespeare. And so I knew Shakespeare. So I said, what Shakespeare I knew? And he was like, I'm busted. Looked out and saw I was a kid. And it was like, not bad, kid. And then Roy took me out to meet Will Gear at his Theatricum Botanicum, where he did shows, and it was really great to have sort of some mentoring going on. But as soon as I was out of high school, I was determined to start working in the industry, and I joined a company for $90 or something. They put you in films and crowd scenes, and I just wanted to get in something, and there was kind of a shortcut cop-out way of doing things, but I started working right away. Bit part, it was just a crowd scene in FM with the riot outside the TV station with Martin Mull on the roof, and that was real fun. The Rose with Bette Midler in the crowd scene at a concert. I Want to Hold Your Hand. I was a Ring fan that Zemeckis was directing. Zemeckis didn't direct us in the crowd, the riots outside the Beatles Hotel. So this young upstart director, Steven Spielberg, came and directed us. And it was 105 degrees in the Burbank backlot, and everyone's bundled up. And it's supposed to be January, New York, below freezing, and the extras are dropping like flies. It was really quite a scene.
That's something.
But and then on Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, where I get brainwashed by Alice Cooper, and I'm in 3 or 4 other scenes, I really started finding my way, the talent. I was like 18 years old, and I at 7:30 in the morning started smelling pot. So I was smelling pot at 7:30 in the morning, and I followed my nose, and it took me to Barry Gibb.
Oh wow!
It's like you're smoking pot at 7:30. Says, yeah, here you go, kid. You want to try? I was like, sure. Yeah. There's tobacco in this. You can't smoke pot with tobacco. He goes, that's how we like to smoke it. And then Robin Gibb comes over and says, hey, our record just made #1 on the Billboard charts. And I was the first to congratulate. Wow. It was really kind of cool. And
that's awesome.
Kind of falling for this blonde dancer in the scene where I'm being brainwashed by Alice Cooper. He wasn't Mean Mr. Mustard. He was the son. I forgot what his character name, but nonetheless, he was only on the video the first 2 of the 3 days we worked there. And I started getting along with this blonde dancer I was rather attracted to. And the second day, we went to lunch off the lot. And I remember she bought me a beer. I was very happy. I was only 18. You have to be 21 to drink in California. Anyway, on the third day, first thing in the morning, I hit the set. I knew Alice was going to be there,
Right.
in person. And I saw Cheryl, this blonde dancer. I went right up to her and I said, "Hey, Cheryl, good morning." She goes, "Jeffrey, oh, great. I want to introduce you to my husband, Alice." I was like, the girl I was hoping to date is married to Alice Cooper. Oh, anyway, nice to meet you.
Right.
Eventually, I learned that extra work is not very fulfilling if you want to really develop a character and do storytelling. I had also a wonderful artistic director down at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, the Music Center, recommend that I get some good training. I had a call back for Brighton Beach Memoirs, I think it was.
Oh, wow.
And he said, you got talent, but you need the training because otherwise no one will take you seriously. And I tell my acting students or would-be actors this all the time. And I set my sights to go to the American Conservatory Theater on the West Coast because I knew I was pretty much on my own, probably couldn't afford to go to Juilliard. Sure. And sure enough, eventually got into ACT. And while studying there, was that me? Oh, while studying at ACT and also intermediate studies at San Francisco State University, I fell into an opportunity to screen test for war games in 1981.
Right.
81, 82. And a very aggressive agent who had just formed her own agency in Beverly Hills, and she had come out of the William Morris New York office, pursued me and offered to represent me. And that's how I got pretty much back to Hollywood from really falling in love with the San Francisco Bay Area.
That is a journey.
Yeah.
Wow. That is something.
I know it's long-winded.
No, I love it. That's what I love is to hear somebody's journey kind of from start to finish or getting back, getting into acting. So you mentioned about war games and I know it was Lady Hawk as well too. You're up for, I think, the starring role in both of those, correct? And I think you didn't get them though, but you gave it your best shot. What do you take away from something like that where, sure, it's going to be a disappointment. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, I didn't get this. But how do you regroup as an actor and say, okay, I got to keep moving on?
I've had a lot of ego training over the years. Like I mentioned, liking as a kid being the center of attention,
right?
And it would often get me into big trouble. I'd often make an impression on the drama coach at a school, and they would cast me in the big production of the year, and I would still be a freshman or a sophomore, and that would piss off the seniors. Right. And so I would get death threats and all sorts of terrible things in my dressing room. Mannequin with a knife in the head with ketchup on it. You're next, Jeffrey. Well, I was cocky and ego was a little out of control, and so I kind of had it coming to me. And on the audition for, it was originally called The Genius.
That's right.
They had John Lennon they were interested in getting, and then unfortunately he was murdered. And then they had Warren. Anyway, at the audition, it was a cattle call.
Oh wow!
And, they had probably about close to 500 guys that they were going through, 6 at a time at this open call, and I didn't expect to be there. I had a friend. When I heard about the audition, I had a friend who I wanted to go. His dad, Alan Meyerson, had formed the committee and was a Hollywood director, Steelyard Blues and others. And he said to his son, Lincoln, you can act, you should, and Lincoln really wanted to act and he wanted to be loved by his dad. Wow. And so I said, Lincoln, I can see you going to get this, but they wanted an 18-year-old non-actor. And by this time I was 20.
Right.
And at the last minute, he said, I won't go unless you go with me. I was like, oh God. Okay.
Wow.
I think I was hungover for my girlfriend's graduation party in Santa Cruz the night before and borrowed his electric razor. I couldn't get a close shave. So nonetheless, I wrote down on the application that I was working on naturalism and realism in my work. And I guess they liked that and took me aside and had me read a scene. Well, they're going through these 500 guys, 6 at a time with the casting director. And they also read my friend Lincoln. and then they released him, and they read me, and they asked, hey. I was like, okay. And then they had me read a second scene, and the director, Martin Brest, said, oh, okay, thanks a lot. And I left, and I got back to my car, and the actress that I had read with chased me down and said, Jeffrey, the director wants to see you again. So I came back in. They're going through the 500, 6 at a time still. And he said, listen, I liked what you did on the first reading. The second reading, not so much. I said, well, to be perfectly honest, I didn't expect to be here. I was here thinking because my friend wanted me to be, and I'm hungover. Okay. Let's read that first scene again. And I read it again. And he turned to Wallace Nacita, the casting agent, who also became a big producer, said, I want to test him. And so I got pretty much in line to test. He had told this agent that I mentioned to you about me, that I was his favorite for the role. I apparently was the only actor to come in from the open calls that they did in San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, and Seattle, I think it was. So, my ego was like,
sure.
And the day the film went into turnaround because what's his name? Warren, great character actor who was attached to it, passed away.
Oh, I can't remember the name.
Warren Oates died, and the MGMUA that had recently merged, the execs couldn't decide whether or not they were going to go ahead with this film.
Oh my gosh!
And it was kind of in development for over a year, and Martin Brest, the original director, very meticulous and obsessive about everything about it, and he took me to the set, which was gorgeous. The mission control and all. It was very exciting, but it kept getting delayed for about a year.
Wow.
And finally, my screen test was on. The same day I tested it's Brian Backer, who had just won a Tony Award on Broadway, and John Stockwell, is that his name, from Christine, and Dana Carvey.
Dana Carvey. Wow.
One of the boys, and Eric Stoltz, and myself. We all, there were about 6 of us who all tested with Ali Sheedy that day. And I remember it was a bad sign. I was going to get up and swim at 6 a.m. I went down to the hotel swimming pool, and it was empty. I was like, for maintenance, I was like, damn. I let things kind of trip me up. Ali Sheedy, during my test, kept looking around me or through me, and I was like, why can't I get her eyes to meet my eye? What's going on here?
Right.
And there was Eric Stoltz in the corner of the studio soundstage, and I was like, what's going on between you two?
Right.
Many years later, I ran into Eric, and I said, in '82, when we were testing for War Games, were you and Ali and Item? And he goes, what year was that? I said, '82. And he goes, yeah, we were living together. I was like, aha, I see. She was pulling through. Anyway, none of us got it. It went to Matthew Broderick. But I got a good agent out of it, and I had to move back to LA. And Martin Brest, who I was his favorite for the role, got fired a couple of weeks into the shoot.
Oh, wow.
His producer, I think, got into it with some mucky mucks in the studio, and she got fired. He quit, or I don't know. She quit. He got fired, and John Badham came in and finished the film. And I only really recently got myself together enough and relaxed enough to go watch it.
Oh wow! So you haven't even seen it since just
I never got. Yeah.
Wow.
I couldn't. It was too painful because I really thought I had it in the bag. When an agent says the director says you're his favorite, and anyway, that ego training thing is what I'm getting at.
Right.
And I thought Matthew did a great job. Yeah, he was good. And though they cut out one of my favorite scenes, I remember reading the script, the scene where David originally escapes from the FBI guys.
Right.
There was a bathroom scene where David says, I got to go pee, I got to go to the bathroom, I got to do number 2, whatever. And the FBI guy undoes his handcuff and he goes into his stall. While they're going into the bathroom, local sheriffs and deputies or whatever see this going on. They go, what kind of kink is this? And the sheriffs follow the FBI guys into the bathroom. And one of them says, hey, you got to take turns yanking the boy's mule or something like that. And before they know it, the FBI guys are laid low.
Wow.
And David makes his escape that way. And it's not that way in the film at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love rewrites.
Yeah. I'm sure. So you've done, so much in your career, television, theater. How do you really prepare for, a role? Obviously, I guess TV is different than movies, but what's sort of the method to your madness of acting to prepare for a role? Like, what do you do?
Well, it's often based on how much time I've got.
Okay.
If it's a stage show, I can generally take weeks, if not a month or so,
Sure.
to develop idiosyncrasies, to really get in tune with the rhythms of the character, to find the different colors, buttons I need to push, the place I need to get so I can bring out the colors.
Right.
If I need to cry on cue. I remember when I auditioned for Clint Eastwood's Pale Rider, that I needed to cry on cue because the audition was over Daddy's dead body after he'd been shot from head to toe. Right. And I had studied some of the Strasberg method and a little bit of Meisner fantasy charging and Zen approach and some subjective personalization stuff. And, I've tried to dip my toe into a lot of different acting techniques to see what works for me. And I wasn't going to leave anything to chance. I had a lock of my grandmother's hair in my pocket. I had my fantasy charging stuff ready to go. And actually, when the producer Fritz Bonds put me on tape for Clint, I had everything working. All the gears were spinning. The pistons were pistoning, firing. And
I love it.
And the tears came. And that was on a Friday. On Monday, I was on my way to Sun Valley, Ketchum, Idaho, to shoot the movie.
Right.
And though sometimes I'll be my worst enemy and be cocky and think I've got it, and I'm not. And or auditions, I often have shot myself in the foot in auditions because I try to please others. Right. Rather than please myself by knowing I've done my hard work and I can do this. But I usually, I'm such a social animal. I want to give you what you want in your interview here.
Right. Exactly. Right.
I'm going to give you everything.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Wow.
And the Lady Hawk audition was another open call, like on War Games.
Right.
And my friend Carl Bressler, who was an actor, if you've seen Usual Suspects, he's Mr. Berg, who gets shot with all the diamonds in the parking lot, in parking structure. Who later he became a big agent to below the line talent, and made a fortune there. And Carl said, "Hey, there's this open call. You want to go with me for this film over at Warner Brothers?" I was like, "Sure, why not?" And waiting in line for 3 hours, I was not used to that. Not wanting to do that necessarily, and put that all behind me, I thought. But I kept him company, and it was kind of cool. And as soon as the casting director saw me, she goes, "Oh, we know you from Honky Tonk Man. Clint wanted to possibly use you, but he didn't want to hit you in the face with a rifle butt. But you're big in our books. Don't worry, you're not right for this." And this was for Lady Hawk. I was like, okay. And then the next day, my agent calls and says, "What are you doing going on an open call?"
Right.
I was like, she goes, "Don't you think if I thought you were right for it, I would submit you?"
Right.
No. And she goes, "Did you have in the back of your mind what happened maybe on War Games?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I was kind of in the back of my mind." She goes, "Good, because they want to see you now." Like what? Richard Donner, the director, was on location over in Italy, or scouting locations, and she arranged to get me the only script messenger to me that day, and they were going to set up a screen test for me, or an audition. I had to go into, it was either Marion Doherty or Lauren Lloyd's office over at Warner Brothers, and I got the script, studied it the next day. I went to her office, and she said, "Well, what do you we had a little conversation." She goes, what scenes do you like?" And I said, "I found about 19 scenes I love." I'd done Renaissance fairs. I,
Sure.
liked the medieval thing, and I was up on The Name of the Rose. I came close on a few medieval films,
Right.
and she said, "All right, let's do all 19." So I did all 19 scenes in her office, and she said, "Great, I'm going to talk with Dick over in Italy tonight about you, and we'll see how it goes." I go, "Thanks," and then I left town. I went to Mexico with my parents for a couple of days. And when I got back, my phone had been ringing off the hook, apparently. And my agent says, "Where have you been?
Oh, my gosh.
They want to screen test you over there." I was like, "What?" And she goes, "Today." I was like, "Today? Oh, my God."
My gosh.
I told you I was going to Mexico. And she goes, "Anyway." And so that afternoon, as I was locking my door, the phone rang again. I was like, do I go? I was going early to Warner Brothers.
Right.
To prep and warm up. And I go back and answer the phone, and it's my agent saying, "The screen test's off. Matthew Broderick just lowered his price."
Wow.
I was like,
Damn.
"Thank you, Matt."
Yeah. It's like, thanks. Appreciate it twice.
I still haven't seen Lady Hawk, though.
Wow. You got to see it now then, I guess, since you saw War Games. So.
Well, I believe you should probably have the long hair, maybe speak with some these and thous. And I suspect Matthew didn't have to do any medieval English.
Right.
And the one time I ran into Michelle Pfeiffer at a farmer's market, I was just so stunned by her beauty, seeing her in person, that I failed to say, "Oh, I almost co-starred in a film with you."
Jeez. You're like, darn. Wow, that's something. That's amazing. So, switching gears a little bit, my favorite film or my favorite trilogy of all time, Back to the Future. It's up there with Star Wars. Little side note, I wanted to get into directing. My family always said, "Oh, you want to be the next Steven Spielberg," because we recreated the clock tower scene in my basement, and we had family members, so we took a video camera. And this is like the late '80s. We had hairspray, we lit matches, we had the car, go basically almost burned down our basement, and we laughed our asses off on it. And it just Back to the Future, just I don't know what it did for me. It was so rich in character and the story. I wore the VHS tape out when I bought it because I just kept watching, like Star Wars, kept watching it. And then when we saw Back to the Future Part 2, my cousin and I were in the theater. And, back then you didn't have Twitter, Facebook, and all this stuff. So we didn't know what was going on. We're like, wait, that's not Crispin Glover. Something's weird. I'm like, something's strange here. No. And I'm like, something's really weird here. And then when I got the VHS tape, my TV was next to my sofa. So in the scene where you're upside down, I actually got on my bed to try to see. I'm like, who is that? I can't figure this out. And I was like, wait, that's somebody different, And it was interesting because on one hand, as a fan, I'm disappointed, and I read later on what happened. But then on the other hand, I'm like, I know it was a lot of small parts, but it was neat for you to get into that. So what was that whole process like? I know that's a loaded question, but I've always wanted to know, like, what was that like, the whole audition, and just, I guess it must have been a little strange too, because Crispin was going back.
You got another hour?
Yeah, I know. I'm ready. I got my coffee and I'm ready.
Cheers.
There we go. That's it.
First, I have to say that here, right here, in fact, when the pandemic first started,
right,
I played Doc Brown in a Shakespearean version of Back to the Future.
Wow.
Did the slide from the clock tower here in my living room.
Yep.
You can find that on. There it is. Yep. Great Scott. You can find that Shakespeare version on YouTube for free. It's called "Get Thee Back."
Oh, I gotta check that out now. I'm a nerd like that.
The company, The Show Must Go Online, found Ian Drescher, who adapted it. He's adapted a lot of different projects as if Shakespeare had written them, like Mean Girls and Star Wars and such. And right. When I auditioned for them and they found out who I was, they said, "What part would you like?" I said, "Doc, I want to be Doc." and it came out pretty fun. It's more highlights and stuff. So
neat.
Please enjoy. So I first of all worked with Crispin in '83 on a film at the American Film Institute. Okay. Dan O'Hurley, and I thought he was a fascinating actor. Got his number, tried to stay in touch. And in '85, I wanted to see what the competition was for Pale Rider, which I was co-starring in, released that summer as well. And so I naturally went to see Back to the Future, which was fantastic. I loved Mike in it, and Chris Lloyd, I was a huge fan already, and Leah was perfect. And Crispin, I went, hey, I know that guy. And I called him, congratulate him.
Right.
And in about 87 or so, in between film and TV work, I fell into a job because I had kids. It was wanted to raise a family. I needed really kind of consistent work. And I fell into playing Stanley Laurel at Universal Studios in Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
And started doing lookalike work the year after starting to play Stan Laurel and getting a decent impersonation and characterization of him out and playing him 8 hours a day. I started playing Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, wow.
And then a year later, I started playing Groucho Marx. And I have, I guess, enough mercury in my astrological makeup that it makes that I can adapt and imitate and play characters fairly well.
Right.
So in 88, I guess it was, I got a call from my lookalike agent who asked if I knew who Crispin was. And I said, of course, he's a friend. And he said, well, they're looking for a photo double for him for a film. And I was like, the Back to the Future sequels? Because it was already being rumored they were putting that together.
Right.
They were calling it Back to the Bank because they threw enough money at all the principals to bring them back.
Right.
And I said, get me in there. And I met with the ADs and said, I worked with Clint, I've worked with John Lithgow, Michael Keaton, all these different projects. And I know I need the work. I need to get my medical from the Screen Actors Guild because my second son was due pretty soon. So the next I went to audition. So first I met with the ADs who talked with the director, I guess. And then I was sent to the casting directors and auditioned with doing the hanging the clothes on the clothesline in the backyard from the first film. And I guess that went well. And they started to make up prosthetic fittings and body cast special effects fittings. Right. And I was like, when I started seeing, and then I did a screen test with the makeup.
Right.
And I was in my mind thinking that, well, they need George, I guess, in multiple places at the same time.
Right.
Something like this. So it's more than a photo double and stand-in.
Right.
It's pretty cool. And then there was a few red flags went up. I remember Dean Cundy, the cinematographer, telling Zemeckis, when Zemeckis said, how does it look? Dean, on my screen test says, looks like we have Crispin without the trouble.
Wow.
And I was like, what does that mean? And then my makeup artist said, Crispin would really, he flipped out in my chair once, cried because I trimmed his hair when he dozed off. And I was like, what? And then finally he said, you're going to be George. I was like, no, I'm not.
What?
He did such a great job with the character. I could see no way that they were going to do the film without him, but apparently he rubbed so many people the wrong way.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
And I was like, oh boy. And the first day I showed up on set in the young George makeup.
Right.
One of the first people I came face to face with was Mike Fox, who said, oh, Crispin ain't going to like this, and I was like, oh, I feel so welcome. And Zemeckis would refer to me when calling action. He would go, and Crispin. I would go, and I finally came over. I said, it's Jeffrey. What is this?
Right.
I was never really told straight up that they didn't have the rights to that makeup, to his likeness. And it was pretty uncomfortable. And I remember a lot of different things in the mix. Billy Zane, I remember saying, I think Leah really kind of was in love with Crispin. I think there was a real thing there. And
jeez,
that's why she kind of gave me a cold shoulder during the shooting. We've become very good friends over the years.
Right.
But there was a lot of mishigas going on, and it was pretty uncomfortable. By the end of the first week, though, I was hanging out in Mike's trailer, having a beer and shooting the shit, as it were. And so and I had trusted that, Universal had covered licensing for me to play Stan Laurel and Charlie Chaplin and Groucho Marx and their likeness use and so I trusted that they had made a deal with Crispin. And in my mind, actually, because I as a Libra, I always make excuses for,
Right.
for others.
Right.
I'm trying to please everyone.
Right.
That Crispin had another project that he just couldn't get out of.
Right.
It must have been heartbreaking for him to
Yeah.
not be able to do the film. And sure enough, as soon as part 3 came out, he called me up and said, it's unfair what they did to me and what they. I said,
Oh, wow.
I agree. And
You're like,
I shared my stories and photos. He shared his sob stories about Bob Gale making him cry in front of extras and so on and so forth. I heard I'm in like the pawn
right.
in between on these sides during this terrible battle, which is still ongoing. It seems it's
Yeah.
so
It is.
so because I helped Crispin get his $750,000 settlement,
Right.
and that came out from his attorney exposing that. I became P&G over at Universal, and so my life got turned upside down, and I pretty much left Hollywood shortly thereafter.
Wow.
But I still work.
Yeah.
And I've recently started playing Mark Twain a little more, and
Nice.
and other characters. I did Igor in Young Frankenstein the musical, which came full circle from meeting Marty Feldman during the Putting on the Ritz shoot.
Oh, neat.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah. No, I never knew that. I never knew you left Hollywood. And back in that day, obviously, there wasn't a lot of material. There wasn't the internet. So we didn't know. We're just like, okay, what happened? And years later it comes out. I'm like, I couldn't believe that. And then just to hear that side of it, but I guess that's sort of that suit must have changed, the image and likeness in Hollywood, really.
It's odd. There's example, an interview that I did in 93 or so,
right,
where I was still kind of reeling about Leah not remembering my name. She introduced me to her mom one day when I came up on the studio tour,
right.
as the actor who played Crispin. I was like, nah. And because I was still like not happy about that, that has the tabloid type shows or online. They like to stir things up, so they'll take bits of this here and bits of that there. There's books that come out that have chosen different things to focus on. Bob Gale has come in and done some very creative edits or rude things to change history, and it's like I wish Crispin and Bob would just kind of shake hands, get over it.
I know. It's been so long. It's been over 30 years. And that's one of those things, like, I would love to just see, like, Crispin and everybody to come back together. Because to me, that's like, it's one of the most iconic films. It's probably my favorite film franchise of all time. And I'm like, I would just love to see that.
I think all parties kind of shot themselves in the foot. And myself included. I probably should have stood up and said, do you have the rights to this makeup? Right from the beginning.
Right.
And I have seen it kind of snowball and egos. It obviously comes from deep cuts, deep wounds, and a lot of pain. But it would be really great that everyone go to their grave healed, and do something, say, for Michael's charity, because after all, in the final summation, it's all about Mike and the love of those films.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just the characters. But if anything, I mean, you were brought into that franchise, and I still love the role that you put in there. I really thought you added something to it. I mean, it was unique. And looking back on it now, because as a kid, I was like, this is so weird. I don't like this. And now I look back, I'm like, it's pretty cool how it came out, and we in the world got to know you more.
Oh, you should see the rewrites. I came in obviously at the 11th hour. They were hoping to work something out with Crispin.
Right.
And I was looking just about a month ago at my Paradox script. That's part 2 and part 3 in the same script.
Right.
And it's rewrites are different colors of pages. And the rewrites of the 2015 McFly home, that kitchen scene has probably about 4 or 5 different colors. They kept rewriting. And one of them, I believe Marty is in the Ortho-Lev in one of them.
Right.
They didn't know how they were going to do it, what they were going to get. And I remember on set, Zemeckis starting to dole out George's lines to Mike and to Leah. And I was like, hey, I'm an actor. I could probably do a line.
Right.
Yeah. So I fought to get some of my lines back. I even improvised a few, like, how's Grandpa's little pumpkin?
Yeah.
That came out of rehearsal.
Right.
because they put Marlene in these orange hot pants, and I think they stuffed them a little bit to make them give her a butt. And it looked like a pumpkin. So that's where that line came from. And
That's awesome. And out in the golf course, that's one of my favorite lines, how you say that.
a fruit, please.
Yeah.
The fruit came down, and Leah tells Marlene, give your granddad a piece of fruit. And I get a banana and try to eat a banana upside down. The peel keeps flapping me in the face. It was very funny, but Zemeckis didn't keep it in.
Yeah.
I still have a still of it. And
wow.
then the reason I learned only a couple of years ago, I actually learned this, why George was hanging upside down. Of course, because the car fell out of the sky while he was golfing on the course, and he wrenched his back.
Right.
Apparently, the story is that Crispin often would overshoot his marks for camera.
Right.
And would, be out of focus, or camera would have to adjust. And it really probably frustrated the crew and the director. Sure. The Bobs figured to keep Crispin on mark, have him on this track hanging upside down so we can control where he is.
Right. Jeez.
And torture him at the same time. So I got the.
You got the torture.
Do you want to see some of the?
Yeah, I'd love to see this, because this is something. This is neat.
I got here.
No problem. Take your time.
Let me pull up one of these little quick slideshow things. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
If I go to Zoom.
Yep.
And I go to share.
Yep.
I could go like this. And I don't know if this is something I want to show. Hold on.
We can edit stuff out if we need to. So.
Okay. Well, this is just, like a slideshow.
Oh, neat.
In ninth grade.
That's awesome.
They're with my big hair outside the War Games office with Marty Brest.
Wow.
I can't seem to find my picture with George Miller, who directed me, here in the background there with Donna Dixon,
right,
with John Lithgow and Charles Knapp on Twilight Zone movie. There's something on the plane wing. There's a man on the wing. That was a lovely cast to work with. Such a great ensemble.
Wow.
Really got along well with Donna.
That's cool.
And this was from Johnny Dangerously with Michael Keaton, my scene with Dom Louise. I became good friends with Dom. And here on Pale Rider.
Nice.
And my scene with Clint. Our picture's in the way. Wait, there we go.
Wow.
That scene, we had on that. Oops.
That's okay.
I've done it now.
No worries. All good.
Let me go back here to this.
Oh, neat.
If you see the film, it took us 3 days to shoot the scene where Daddy gets shot from head to toe.
Right.
You see Brother and I here at the Mercantile being held back by Richard Hamilton's Blankenship's the character name.
Wow.
We're in a blizzard. When it cuts back to Daddy, he's in sunshine. It took us 3 days to shoot it.
Oh my gosh.
And by the time we got to Daddy's body, all the snow had melted, so they brought in the oil-based snow, which doesn't act like snow. You'll see if you pay close attention. A lot of good stories of Pale Rider.
Right. That is cool. Wow.
And then, of course, with the late, great Dustin on Saved by the Bell as Screech's
Oh,
Groove.
right. Yep. Dustin Diamond. Wow.
I was the high geek.
I remember that.
And Mike Mills, who was the foreman on Beetlejuice, touching me up for this makeup.
Wow.
George, right side up, and
there you go. That is something.
There are those hot pants.
Yeah, there you go. That's right.
It looked like a pumpkin.
Yeah, they do. Wow.
They didn't like getting me down because it took a long time to string me up and take me down and let me have a break. So my handler from ILM, Don, he built this nice board on a ladder and slide it under, say, do a sit up, and do my sit up. They'd rest back on it and twiddle my thumbs while everyone would go off and get coffee. So often I was all alone on the set.
That is neat. Wow.
There's the jacket that never worked. I said, Bob Gale, can I buy this jacket? I like it. He said, sure, $400. I said, $400? Come on.
Wow, that is something. Elizabeth Shue.
Elizabeth was a delight.
Yeah.
There with Bob Z.
Oh, wow.
I had to negotiate my credit with Bob Z. my agents didn't have the wherewithal to negotiate a title credit for me. I said, Bob, I had a title credit in Pale Rider. I should, a shared title credit at least on this. He says, yeah, I won't give you a single card, but I'll give you a shared title credit. After he told the producers, Neil Cannon and Bob Gale came over and tried to bite my head off. So you never talk to the director. I said, listen,
wow,
that could be a step back in my career to take anything less.
Oh my gosh.
And fans make pop art.
Wow, that's neat.
And this is from that special effect that was cut from the film where actually George got to rotate his axis for pizza because it was bad for his digestion.
Wow, that's something. That had to be grueling though, get upside down and jeez. That's something. Wow.
I got to see everyone's nose hairs. There's the famous bananas.
There you go.
Upside down. I can make this work.
That is something. Wow. There you go.
It was really great to work with the pros. Tom was a pro. Everyone really, both cast and crew, were top notch.
Right.
I felt sorry for Leah having to kiss me and all that makeup.
Right. But still, they played off well. I mean, from a distance, that's something. Wow.
That's actually not Michael, that.
Really?
This is Kevin. This is his photo double.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can see that. There you go. Oh, that's great.
With Mark. And so then I started being discovered by the fans.
Right. That's great, though. I'm glad.
2008, started doing the reunions. Finally got to hang out here at the Beverly Cinema. Spent about 40 minutes in the projectionist booth before we were introduced there with Chris Lloyd, and finally got to get him to open up and chat. He's become a friend.
That's awesome. There you go. Bob Gale. Oh, neat.
The DeLorean car shows have the DeLorean owners actually adopted me first. I'd become special guest and then MC and sometimes entertainment or teach improv, whatever, at their events. And I actually have claustrophobia, so it's really hard for me to be a passenger. I can drive a DeLorean, okay.
Right.
Being a passenger is sometimes very hard. Though my monster DeLorean, I look pretty good in it.
I like it. I love it.
This was the first reunion we did.
Oh, wow.
Hollywood show in 2008. Michael Klastron on the right there with the silver hair wrote the book, the encyclopedia, Back to the Future.
Oh, cool.
Next to James Tolkien is Kevin Pike, who was on the DeLorean Time Machine special effects crew. He did a lot of special effects for a lot of great projects. Andrew Probert next to him, who was on the design crew for the Time Machine. Anyway, you can see.
Yep, Save the Clock Tower. Yep, she just passed away recently.
Yeah, just a year ago.
Wow.
And Charlie Fleischer.
Oh, wow.
Mark McClure peeking over Charlie's head, who was Dave McFly. Yep. Leah, Claudia, the first Jennifer, Parker, Chris, of course.
That's awesome. That's very cool.
And Michael showed up unannounced.
Oh, that's great.
Special event. He was promoting his book and just stopped in, and it was about 20 minutes with him privately, and it was the first time a lot of us had seen how the effects of his Parkinson's sort of ravaged him.
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking, but it was also great because he's still feisty. We all said, all right, Mike, we're going to lunch. And we left him with 500 fans. It was like, no.
That's great. Wow, that is awesome. Oh,
And that's me as a lobster.
there you go. I love it. This is awesome.
I diagnosed murder with Dick Van Dyke, who was
Yep.
also a good friend of Stan Laurel's. So we spent most of the day talking about Stan Laurel and his relationship with Buster Keaton. And
Oh, wow.
very wonderful projects. Dick was great. At one point, I said to Dick, you know, when I was little, I wanted to grow up to be you. And he got this look in his eyes like, what?
Right.
Yeah, he was really lovely, man. And this is me as Stan Laurel.
Oh, wow. I probably saw you because I was my first trip out to LA was 1987 with my dad, my mom, and we took the tour, and I loved the Courthouse Square tour. So I bet you I got to dig out my pictures because I bet you I have a picture with you from then.
Yeah, this is probably circa about 87 with Spielberg.
Right. Wow. That is cool. That is neat.
And then as Charlie.
There you go. That's awesome.
Then I put a Stooges team together with
Oh, wow.
Chris Dermick, and this is Brian Mulligan. There's another team that's I'm here with Iggy Pop, giving him his
there we go.
birthday
Iggy.
treat, since his band was called the Stooges. His girlfriend thought it'd be a good idea.
Oh,
And
that's
then I've been
great.
working with another team more recently. There's my Groucho. And then I play an obsessive compulsive winemaker in a film called Corked, and here is my first time playing Mark Twain.
Oh, wow.
Creating his trip to the Holy Land in 1867, and then playing Twain in some live stuff.
That's cool.
More recently, I've been developing Mark Twain educational series.
Oh, neat. And you also you teaching and coaching as well right now too, still, right?
Yes,
That's,
there was some Commedia dell'arte there, a Fool at Renaissance fairs, me with my boys
nice.
when we were young.
Wow.
Director work. It's from a lovely film called Nobody's Laughing, which you can find 2 or 3 different versions online for free. Really great parable, really good story, fun film.
Gotta check that out.
The Igor production I was talking about.
Right.
I was the hobo on the Polar Express for 11 years for the California Railroad Museum.
Oh my gosh.
Bad gun handling in a film called Savior of None. A time traveling bad guy in The Traveler. And then for some of the Back to the Future events, fundraisers, like we're going back, I played guitar here at one of those, and I put a band together for a cruise, Back to the Future cruise to end Parkinson's.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow, that is cool.
And then I guess my IMDb there.
That's great. Wow. What a career. Thank you for that. That was something. Wow. That just riveting looking at all those and behind the scenes photos. What a career you've had.
There's more where that came from. I have a whole slideshow of cosplayers that I enjoy. You know, the cosplayers from around the world doing Back to the Future stuff, and fan art. You know, I had one fan make my action figure. I don't know if you can see that.
Gosh. Wow. That's got to be something. Like just to see all these people do all that stuff. And, you know, I'm sure some 30 years ago it was tough. And then now it's like everybody's come around and you're like, wow, this is really cool. And you're part of the whole crew and the trilogy, which you should be. You really should be, which is great. So I'm glad to see that. So you do a lot of coaching right now. So what's next for you? Continue doing the coaching and some of the theater things you've been doing, or what's
I've been unfortunately not returned yet to in-person coaching.
Gotcha.
I just feel too much unsettledness, and I have too many vulnerable people in my life.
Absolutely, I get it.
To bring anything home. I've started doing fan cons again. Recently was in New Jersey.
That's right, not too far from me.
and then earlier in the year at the Pensacon in Florida.
Right.
Was supposed to do Orlando, Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee, maybe Indiana, and that was a group of Back to the Future alumni. But James Tolkien, being 90 years old, just before we were supposed to go to Orlando, numbers spiked. Same thing happened in Knoxville. And when James pulled out, the promoter kind of pulled the plug on all of us.
Wow, geez.
So hoping those will get rescheduled, and was supposed to do StarCon with Peter Weller.
Oh, wow.
Philly,
Yep.
and working on getting that rescheduled. So the fan con's coming back, trickling, which
Great.
hopefully is going to work out. I've got a couple projects that I can't say anything about.
Sure. Yeah.
That
Gotcha.
I'm working on, but once again, I am developing Mark Twain's American History as I know it, which I designed to be maybe an educational tool for homeschoolers, or especially during the pandemic, to be Zoomed or whatever. And it seems to have taken a life of its own. I now am up to 8 different episodes that I'm outlining the scripts, and I've been a guest of the Center for Mark Twain Studies in Elmira.
Wow.
And looking to be an artist in residence there in 2022, hopefully, knock on wood.
Nice.
So I can flesh out the script with the help of the scholars that are associated with the Mark Twain Studies Center. And it's really great to find these various topics like the abolition movement, the women's suffrage movement, the anti-imperialist movement. He was often on one side of an argument, and then through being hit over the head by someone he knew or life experience, got to be on the other side of an argument, which was usually the right side of that argument.
Right.
And so these episodes are all having this nice arc to them, and what's driving them is Twain's quest for truth. Right. And so it's really kind of writing itself. It's really lovely. And one project that I wish I could talk about, it's very much the characterization is coming because the writers have fleshed out such a wonderful evil character. I in recent years have played more bad guy stuff, which is really fun for me because I always usually get comedic roles.
Right.
I do a lot of physical comedy and
sure.
I'm pretty good with my rhythm on comedy. But to play a bad guy and then bring in the layers of comedy or the layers of truth that in the bad guy's mind, he's not bad at all. And that makes it stronger. And so having that opportunity, having those opportunities has been very rewarding and lovely.
That's great. Something a little different. Wow. That is awesome.
So people can follow me on Twitter. It's at JEF Weissman, WEISSMAN.
Perfect.
On Instagram at Jeffrey J. Weissman.
Awesome.
And Facebook, my fan page is Jeffrey Weissman Actor, at Jeffrey Weissman Actor. And then if you need to get a hold of me for a project because we like to work, or you want to study with me, I've figured out how to use Zoom to great effect for acting coaching. And I help people with their auditions all the time. It's jeffreyweissman.com, and there's an email button right there on the.
Oh, sweet. Perfect. And we'll put all this stuff out there too to make sure everybody has it. This has been an awesome journey. I really appreciate your time. My one last question is, if you had one piece of advice for somebody coming into acting, breaking into acting, what would that be?
Get out. Oh,
I was just gonna say, is get out. We come full circle.
Don't do it. Like Don Adams said.
Right.
Forget about it. No, I like I said earlier in our interview, get training.
Yeah.
Casting directors, if they're worth their weight, they'll go right to your training to see how serious you're taking yourself and your craft. And remember, it's a craft, and like any craft, you need to hone it.
Right.
And work, and you'll never stop working on it.
Right.
I still take workshops when I can afford to.
Oh, that's great.
Your body, your voice, your mind is part of the instrument. A musician never stops practicing. An actor can't stop practicing. And then once you start working, stay in touch with everyone. You hopefully have 2 journals.
Right.
One for your artistic stuff and developing your character and your history and all, and one for your business side.
Wow.
I had made the mistake of trusting that my hot agent was going to stay in touch and keep in touch for me with George Miller and Clint Eastwood and
Right.
Louis Malle and all these wonderful directors that I worked with early on.
Right.
And then when that agent closed shop, I was like, oh shit.
Wow. You're like, whoops.
Yeah. So, and even when you're working with student, I've worked,
Right.
Did student or early projects with the likes of Greg Araki,
Right.
Catherine Hardwick, John Schwartzman, the people who later became very successful in the industry. And if you stay in touch with those people, hopefully they like you enough, since they worked with you and see what a pro you are, that
Right.
they will continue working with you.
Right. Wow. That is awesome. Well, this has been an amazing journey. I really thank you again for the time. Everybody, Jeffrey Weissman, thank you so much for joining today. And we'll see you next time, everybody.
Joe, thanks for having me on. Be well,
Yes.
stay safe, and
Yes.
compassionate.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
All right, everybody. So that was an awesome interview with Jeffrey Weissman. Talked about his successes, his failures, how ego gets in the way. I think that was a really cool takeaway that I got from him. How he lost some roles. I mean, he was supposed to be up for the leading role in War Games, and Matthew Broderick got that. And then he gets into Back to the Future 2 and 3, gets ridiculed, quits the business. Unbelievable how that happens. But he still persisted. He stayed with it because he loved what he did. And it was great to hear him talk about how he got the start in the business by chance, how he kept going, now how he's doing theater, he's coaching other actors, and he's come full circle. And it's truly amazing. And I just love the whole Back to the Future thing. I'm a Back to the Future nerd, one of the biggest franchises ever, and just totally cool to see pictures and stills from behind the scenes, him with the makeup. And I thought he did an amazing job in that role, given all the circumstances, all the controversy. And it's really cool to learn some new and interesting facts about Crispin Glover and him, how they were friends, and basically how Crispin went and sued the producers of Back to the Future and then eventually won some money. But it was really cool to understand that and then just see Jeffrey now come full circle. So Jeffrey Weissman, thank you so much for taking the time to interview on the Career and Life Show. And as they say in Back to the Future, your future is whatever you make of it. So make it a good one, all of you. Time circuit's on, flex capacitor flexing, engine running. We'll see you on the next show, everybody. Take care.